Captain June Park's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his uniform one last time before entering the great chamber of the Galactic Council. The massive doors, each carved from a single crystal harvested from the moons of Altair, swung open silently. Inside, representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations sat in rising tiers around a central speaking platform. The chamber hummed with quiet conversations in dozens of languages, most beyond human hearing range. June felt the weight of being one of the youngest species present. Humans had achieved faster-than-light travel barely 40 years ago, while some council members had been crossing the stars when Earth's dominant species were still small mammals. Hiding from dinosaurs, the council recognizes Captain June Park of Earth, announced the moderator, a tall, willowy being whose silver skin reflected the chamber's blue lighting. June stepped onto the platform, and his prepared data immediately appeared on floating screens, visible to all council members. The central hologram showed the Orion anomaly, a slowly rotating tear in space that shimmered with colors that shouldn't exist. "Honorable representatives," June began, his voice steady despite his nerves. 3 months ago, our Deep Space Observatory in the Kuiper Belt detected unusual energy signatures from the previously uncharted region near HD 37601. Further investigation revealed what you see before you, a spatial anomaly approximately 12 light minutes in diameter. He gestured, and the display showed energy readings spiking in chaotic patterns. Our scientists have recorded irregular quantum fluctuations that defy known physical laws. When matter approaches the anomaly's edge, we observe temporal distortion. And a harsh sound interrupted him, something between a bark and a laugh. From the NIGMA delegation's elevated platform, High Commander Dawn stood up. His massive frame, covered in gold-plated exoskeletal armor, made even the largest council members look small. "The council indulges Earth far too much," Dawn said, mandibles clicking in amusement. "These warnings are transparent attempts to claim valuable space they lack the technology to exploit." More NIGMA representatives joined in the laughter, their segmented eyes flashing with contempt. June kept his expression neutral. "This isn't about territorial claims. Our readings indicate the anomaly is unstable and potentially dangerous to—" "Potentially dangerous!" Dawn's voice boomed through the chamber. "Humans and their primitive fears. Your species barely understands space travel, yet you lecture civilizations that crossed galaxies when your ancestors were still discovering fire. The NIGMA Empire controlled nearly 60 star systems, their technological advancement second only to the ancient archivists. Their mining fleet stripped entire asteroid belts in days, and their energy production dwarfed Earth's total capacity by factors of thousands." "Our science is sound," June insisted, bringing up further data. "When probes approach within 20,000 kilometers of the anomaly, we detect quantum entanglement patterns, suggesting something inside is reacting to external stimuli. So it's not just a spatial disruption, it's behaving almost like a living system." The moderator's antennae twitched slightly, the equivalent of raised eyebrows. "That is a substantial claim, Captain." Before June could respond, Dawn waved a dismissive limb. "Fascinating theories from a species that still uses chemical rockets for planetary transport. The NIGMA Empire formally claims exclusive mining rights to this region. Our preliminary scans show exotic matter concentrations that could revolutionize quantum engineering." June felt his heart sink as several council members nodded in agreement. "We request a thorough investigation before any mining operations begin," he said. "The anomaly shows signs of expansion when—" "The request is noted," the moderator interrupted. "All those in favor of granting the NIGMA Empire provisional extraction rights to the Orion spatial anomaly." 15 appendages of various shapes rose into the air. Those opposed. June counted only 7 supporters, including the reclusive fan collective and the cautious Ryland Federation. "Motion carries," the moderator announced. "The NIGMA Empire is granted exclusive rights for 1 standard cycle with review pending. After initial operations." Dawn's eye facets gleamed with triumph as he looked down at June. "Your concern is touching, Captain. Perhaps focus on your own developing worlds, rather than interfering with matters beyond your understanding." The session ended with a soft chime. As representatives filed out through various exits, June gathered his data devices, trying to hide his frustration. "Captain Park," a soft voice called. He turned to find Ambassador Han of Centauri Prime standing nearby. Her luminescent skin pulsed with gentle blue patterns, a sign of concern among her people. "Ambassador," June acknowledged with a respectful nod. She glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Your evidence was compelling despite what occurred here. My people have sensed disturbances from that region of space for many cycles." "You believe me?" June asked, surprised. "The Centauri evolved as empaths before we developed technology," she whispered. "Something feels wrong about that region of space, like a wound that shouldn't be touched. Our scientists have been monitoring it discreetly. Would your government share that data?" June asked hopefully. "I'll arrange a secure transmission, but be careful, NIGMA doesn't appreciate competition." 3 days later, back on Earth, June sat in the quiet observation lab at the Korean Space Agency headquarters as Dr. Hana Kim showed him the latest findings. "Watch what happens when we sync our readings with NIGMA's first survey ships," Hana said, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. The display showed the anomaly's edge pulsing with sudden energy as 3 NIGMA mining vessels approached. "It's reacting specifically to their engines," she explained. "When our probes approached using standard fusion drives, we got minimal response. But NIGMA ships use quantum fold technology. And look at these patterns." June leaned closer. The anomaly's energy signature had changed, becoming more organized, almost rhythmic. "It's responding to them," Hana said, her voice dropping, "like something waking up when it hears a specific sound." "The Council wouldn't listen," June sighed. "NIGMA's already setting up extraction platforms." Hana turned to him, her expression grave. "Then we need to gather more evidence, because whatever's happening out there, it's not just some cosmic phenomenon to be mined. It's responding. It's aware. And NIGMA just poked it with a stick," June finished. Outside the lab windows, Earth's night sky sparkled with stars. Somewhere, out there in the direction of Orion's belt, something ancient was stirring from slumber. Something that had the entire Centauri civilization on edge. And only humanity seemed worried enough to sound the alarm. 6 months transformed the empty region around the Orion anomaly into an industrial marvel. Where once there was only the strange, shimmering tear in space-time, now 53 NIGMA extraction platforms formed a complex web around its perimeter. Each platform, a city-sized structure of gleaming black metal, extended quantum filaments into the anomaly's edge, drawing out streams of exotic matter that pulsed with impossible colors. June Park watched the latest surveillance footage from a cloaked Earth observation satellite, his face illuminated by the holographic display. The NIGMA operation had grown far beyond initial projections. Their workforce now numbered in the hundreds of thousands, a mix of NIGMA drones and contracted labor from desperate outer rim worlds. "They've increased production by 200% in the past month alone," said Admiral Wu, head of Earth Fleet Intelligence. The older man's weathered face showed deep concern as he pointed to energy readings. "Whatever they're extracting, it's revolutionizing their technology. Their new warships are achieving faster than light speeds we thought impossible." "And the anomaly?" June asked. Admiral Wu switched the display. "Growing. Diameter has increased by 6.2% since extraction began." The command center fell silent. Earth's Security Council had gathered in this underground facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, one of the few meeting places believed to be secure from NIGMA's advanced surveillance. "We need more data," said Defense Minister Yuna Lee. "Theoretical. Models aren't enough to convince the Galactic Council. We need direct evidence." "That's why we built the Horizon," Admiral Wu responded. "Most advanced research vessel in the Earth fleet, equipped with sensors that can analyze the anomaly from within NIGMA's security perimeter without detection." Minister Lee looked skeptical. "Their security net gets tighter every week." "The Horizon uses experimental adaptive camouflage," June explained. "It should appear as background radiation to their scanners." 2 weeks later, June stared in horror at the emergency transmission playing on screens worldwide. The Horizon, Earth's most sophisticated research vessel, exploded in a brilliant flash of light, as 3 NIGMA warships fired in perfect synchronization. The ship's final sensor data streamed back to Earth through quantum entanglement channels, showing the anomaly's outer layer responding to the attack, rippling like disturbed water. Then silence. All 142 crew members lost. Before Earth could even process the tragedy, NIGMA Emperor Tusk addressed an emergency session of the Galactic Council. This unprovoked espionage represents a clear military provocation, the Emperor declared, his massive form dominating the E chamber. Earth sent an armed vessel into our legally granted territory with intent to sabotage our operations. The council chamber erupted in angry discussion. Earth's representative tried desperately to explain the Horizon's scientific mission, but few listened. "We have recovered fragments proving the vessel carried prototype quantum disruptors," Emperor Tusk continued, mandibles clicking in what passed for righteous indignation among his species. "Earth intended to destabilize our operation and claim the resources for themselves. The evidence, fabricated so perfectly even Earth's allies couldn't definitively refute it, sealed their fate." The Council voted 18-9 to impose harsh sanctions on Earth for aggressive interference in sovereign affairs. 3 days later, June sat in a quiet corner of an old-fashioned Tokyo cafe, nursing a cup of green tea. The rain outside matched his mood, relentless and grey. His diplomatic credentials had been revoked, his warnings ignored, and his career destroyed. Now he worked as a special advisor to a minor department, effectively silenced. Across from him sat Dr. Hana Kim, her own career similarly derailed after her public statements about the anomaly's dangers. She slid a small data chip across the wooden table. "What's this?" June asked quietly. "Data from the Centauri monitoring network," Hana whispered. "Ambassador Han sent it through personal channels. Look at the temporal distortion readings from the past week." June plugged the chip into his secure tablet under the table. The numbers made his blood run cold. "This can't be right. The instability is increasing exponentially." "It is. The anomaly is growing faster than even our worst models predicted," Hana said. "NIGMA's extraction is accelerating the process." The cafe's old ceiling fan spun lazily above them, its soft whirring providing cover for their conversation. Through the window they could see people hurrying through the rain, unaware that humanity's warnings about a distant spatial anomaly might determine the fate of countless worlds. "We need allies," June said finally. "Earth alone can't stand against NIGMA, especially now." Hana nodded. "I've been making connections. 7 worlds have scientists who share our concerns. The Centauri, obviously. But also researchers from Proxima Beta, the Rylan Federation. Even a splinter group of NIGMA scientists who've been quietly reaching out." "NIGMA scientists?" June was surprised. "Not all of them are blinded by profit. Some see the patterns in the data." Hana leaned closer. "There's a research outpost on Europa where we can meet without scrutiny. The Jovian moons are outside the sanction zones. A group of tourists entered the cafe, their translator devices creating a bubble of electronic chatter." Joan and Hana fell silent until they passed. "What about the new technology NIGMA's developing?" June asked. "The exotic matter they're harvesting, it's changing everything. Their ships now travel at speeds that should be physically impossible." Hana's expression darkened. "That's the most troubling part. The material they're extracting doesn't follow normal physical laws. It's like it comes from somewhere with different rules." "A different dimension," June suggested. "Or a different universe entirely." Hana pulled out another device, this one, showing microscopic images of what looked like crystalline structures that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. "These particles shouldn't be stable in our reality, yet they're not only stable but reactive to specific energy frequencies." Outside, the grey sky suddenly lit up with the familiar blue glow of a NIGMA commercial transport descending toward Tokyo International Spaceport. Even with the sanctions, NIGMA products flooded Earth's markets, exotic technology that made conventional devices obsolete overnight. Many humans welcomed the technological leap, regardless of the politics behind it. "How much time do we have?" June asked quietly. Hana closed her eyes briefly. "Based on current expansion rates, maybe 3 months before the anomaly reaches critical instability." "And what happens then?" "We don't know exactly. But the Centauri empaths report increasing sensations coming from the anomaly. They describe it as hunger or anticipation. The cafe's ancient door chime sounded as another customer entered, a tall figure in a rain-soaked coat. Without looking directly, June recognized the distinctive gait of a Rylan. The alien found a table across the room, seemingly engrossed in an old-fashioned paper book. "That's Dr. Tao," Hannah whispered. "One of our contacts. He's risking everything being here." June took a final sip of his tea. "Then we shouldn't waste his courage. We have allies, we have data, and we have very little time." As they prepared to leave separately to avoid attention, Hannah gripped his arm. "The anomaly is watching us, June. Whatever's on the other side, it's awake now." Above them, barely visible through Tokyo's rainy sky, the stars of Orion's belt twinkled innocently, giving no hint of the terrible danger brewing among them. The emergency alert sirens wailed across the NIGMA extraction fleet as the anomaly pulsed. With blinding light, without warning, it expanded in a violent surge, engulfing 3 massive outposts in seconds. 50,000 workers vanished in an instant, not destroyed but simply gone, along with billions in equipment and infrastructure. In the command center of Platform Prime, Supervisor Krell staggered backward as monitoring screens flashed with impossible readings. "Pull back all vessels," he ordered, mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. "Establish a new perimeter at safe distance." The surviving platforms began emergency thrust procedures, their massive engines glowing hot as they pushed away from the newly expanded anomaly. But before the withdrawal could complete, a direct transmission from the NIGMA Imperial Palace interrupted all communications. Emperor Tusk's massive form filled every screen throughout the extraction fleet. His exoskeletal armor gleamed under the palace lights, ceremonial scarification patterns pulsing with bioluminescence across his thorax. "There will be no retreat," the Emperor declared. "This expansion represents a breakthrough, not a setback." Krell's secondary eyes blinked in confusion. "Imperial Majesty, we lost 3 outposts. The anomaly's behavior is unpredictable and the expansion released a new form of exotic matter," Emperor Tusk interrupted. "Our sensors detect energy potentials beyond anything previously recorded. Double production immediately." "But the workers," Krell began, "are expendable. We stand at the threshold of unlimited power." The Emperor leaned closer to the transmission device. "My scientists believe we can harness the anomaly itself, not just extract its byproducts. Whoever controls this power will rule not just this galaxy, but all galaxies." As the transmission ended, Krell reluctantly relayed the orders. The surviving platforms reversed thrust, moving closer to the anomaly's edge than ever before. New extraction filaments, hastily reinforced, plunged into the shimmering boundary. 3 days later, strange reports began circulating throughout the NIGMA fleet. On Platform 7, an entire work crew awoke screaming simultaneously, each describing identical nightmares of being watched by something with too many eyes all wrong. On Platform 12, maintenance workers discovered geometric shapes materializing inside sealed chambers, impossible constructions that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Most disturbing were the equipment malfunctions. Chronometers ran backward. Gravity generators pushed instead of pulled. Communication systems received messages hours before they were sent. Meanwhile, on Europa's underground research station, June Park squeezed into the crowded conference room where scientists from 7 worlds had gathered in secret. The station, built into the moon's icy crust beneath 15 kilometers of frozen ocean, provided both secrecy and safety from NIGMA surveillance. "This is everyone we could trust," Hannah said quietly as June took his place beside her. Representatives from every world that would listen. The assembled group was small but diverse. The luminescent Ambassador Han from Centauri, 3 angular Rylans with their characteristic silver skin, a delegation of Proxima Betans who communicated through color patterns on their translucent bodies, and most surprisingly, 2 NIGMA scientists, their exoskeletons deliberately unmarked to hide their clan identities. "Thank you for coming despite the risks," June began, "particularly our NIGMA colleagues." One of the NIGMA scientists clicked nervously. "We face execution if discovered, but what's happening cannot continue." Hannah activated the holographic display, in the center of the room. For the past 6 weeks, our combined research teams have analyzed data from every available source. Today, we can present our findings. The display showed the anomaly in unprecedented detail, a tear in reality that pulsed with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space. As they watched, mathematical equations and quantum formulations appeared alongside the image. "It's not just an anomaly," Hannah explained, her voice steady despite the enormity of the discovery. "It's a membrane between dimensions, a boundary between our universe and something else entirely." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The exotic matter NIGMA has been harvesting consists of particles that don't belong in our reality, Hannah continued. They follow different physical laws because they originate somewhere with different fundamental constants. "And the expansion 3 days ago?" asked one of the Ryland scientists. "The membrane is weakening," Hannah replied. "Each extraction damages its integrity further. The recent expansion wasn't growth, it was the beginning of a rupture." The elder NIGMA scientist stepped forward. "We've intercepted reports from the mining fleet. Work crews are experiencing shared psychic phenomena, identical nightmares, visions of non-Euclidean geometries, time discontinuities. Something is looking back at us through the tear," Ambassador Han added softly, her skin pulsing with patterns of deep concern. "The Centauri empaths feel it, a vast consciousness becoming aware of our existence." The hologram shifted to show new simulations. "Based on current extraction rates, we calculate total membrane failure within 14 days, Hannah said. "When that happens, the boundary between dimensions will collapse entirely. And then?" asked the Proxima Beacon leader, their body flashing anxious yellow patterns. June stepped forward. "Then whatever exists on the other side will no longer be contained. It will enter our universe unchecked." The room erupted in questions and exclamations of alarm. June raised his hands for quiet. "We have a more immediate problem," he said grimly. "NIGMA isn't slowing operations, they're accelerating them. Emperor Tusk believes he can harness the anomaly's power." The younger NIGMA scientist clicked in disbelief. "Impossible! Our data proves the anomaly cannot be controlled. It's not a resource, it's a breach." Outside the conference room's small viewport, Europa's icy surface reflected Jupiter's faint glow. Somewhere beyond, past the safe familiarity of the solar system, an ancient boundary between realities was failing. "We need to establish a containment perimeter immediately," June announced, his voice cutting through the growing panic. "Every available ship, every weapon system, every defense platform we can muster." "Against what?" asked one of the Rylands. "We don't even know what might come through." Hannah brought up one final simulation, a mathematical model showing energy waves propagating outward from the anomaly in all directions. "Based on the limited data we've gathered, anything crossing the membrane would exist as a higher dimensional entity in our space. Our physical laws would be like suggestions to them, at best." Ambassador Han's skin had darkened to a deep indigo, the Centauri expression of profound dread. "We tried to warn everyone. The Council must be informed immediately. They'll never believe us without proof," June said. "And NIGMA controls all access to the anomaly." The elder NIGMA scientist's mandibles clicked rhythmically, their version of a resigned sigh. "Not completely. I can get you aboard Supply Transport 37. It delivers provisions to the extraction fleet in 2 days. From there you could gather direct evidence of the membrane degradation." June and Hannah exchanged glances. "It would be a one-way journey," the scientist added quietly. "The transport would return, but you would need to find your own way off the platforms." "I'll go," June said without hesitation. "We both will," Hannah added. "We need both diplomatic and scientific expertise." As the meeting broke into smaller groups to plan their desperate countermeasures, the younger NIGMA scientist approached June privately. "There's something else you should know," he clicked softly. The most recent transmissions from Platform Prime included crew reports of hearing voices coming from the anomaly itself. "What are they saying?" June asked. The scientist's compound eyes flickered nervously. "That's the troubling part. According to the reports, in over 30 different languages, the voices are all saying the same thing, which is Finally, the NIGMA flagship Dominance hovered at the edge of the anomaly, its massive hull gleaming with energy deflection fields. At 12 kilometers long, it represented the pinnacle of NIGMA engineering, a vessel constructed using the exotic matter harvested from the very anomaly it now prepared to penetrate. Its weapon systems could reduce planets to molten slag. Its quantum engines could cross the galaxy in days rather than years. On the command bridge, Admiral Krev stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, compound eyes reflecting the swirling colors of the anomaly displayed on the main view screen. Behind him, Emperor Tusk himself had arrived to witness this historic moment, surrounded by his royal guard. "All preparations complete, Imperial Majesty," Krev reported. "The modified quantum shielding is at maximum capacity." Emperor Tusk clicked his approval. "Proceed, Admiral. Today the NIGMA Empire takes its rightful place as rulers of not just this galaxy, but all reality." The massive ship's engines pulsed with impossible light as it edged forward, penetrating the anomaly's outer boundary. Sensor data flooded the ship's computers, readings beyond anything previously recorded. Krev activated the Empire-wide broadcast system. Across 53 star systems, NIGMA civilians and military watched as their flagship ventured where no vessel had gone before. "The initial penetration is successful," Krev announced triumphantly. "The power readings are beyond anything we imagined. We're detecting energy sources that could power our entire empire for millennia, with just a fraction of—" He stopped suddenly, mandibles clicking in confusion. "Wait, something's wrong with the—" Throughout the ship, instruments began displaying impossible readings. Gravity shifted directions randomly. Crew members reported seeing through bulkheads as if solid matter had become transparent. On the lower decks, engineering reported that time itself seemed to be flowing at different rates. Emperor Tusk lurched forward. "What's happening? Explain immediately." Before Krev could respond, a low humming sound filled the bridge, resonating through the bodies of everyone present. It wasn't sound in the conventional sense. It was vibration at a quantum level, as if reality itself was singing. "The anomaly is responding to our presence," one science officer managed to say before, clutching her head in pain. "It's aware." On the view screen, the anomaly's swirling colors coalesced into patterns that hurt the eyes to observe, geometries that shouldn't be possible, shapes that existed in more dimensions than the mind could comprehend. "Pull back," Emperor Tusk commanded. His usual confidence shattered. "Full reverse thrust." "Engines not responding," Krev reported, panic evident in his usually disciplined voice. "The ship is being held in place." The humming grew louder, and crew members began screaming as blood seeped from their eyes and breathing spiracles. The Emperor himself staggered, his exoskeleton cracking under pressures that shouldn't exist in normal space. "This is Admiral Krev of the NIGMA flagship Dominance," he transmitted, voice breaking. "To all Imperial forces, stay away from the anomaly. It's not what we thought. It's alive. It's—" The transmission cut to static as reality itself tore open. The Dominance didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist as the laws of physics that governed its matter were rewritten in an instant. Where the ship had been, a massive wound in space-time pulsed and expanded. Through this breach poured things. Not ships, not beings in any conventional sense, but entities of pure energy and impossible geometry. They moved through normal space like oil through water, leaving reality distorted in their wake. Within hours, automated distress signals blared across all communication channels as the entities reached the NIGMA homeworld. Planetary defense systems fired with enough power to shatter moons, but the weapons passed harmlessly through the invaders. The last transmission from the NIGMA capital showed impossible structures growing from the ground, crystalline formations that bent upward and inward simultaneously, existing in directions that had no name in any language of this universe. Then silence fell across all NIGMA communication networks. One by one, NIGMA colonial systems went dark over the next 24 hours. No distress calls, no evacuation ships, no final stands, just silence as each world was enveloped by the expanding influence of whatever had come through the breach. Aboard the emergency command vessel, Defiant, June Park watched in horror as the tactical display showed the spread of the incursion. What had started as a single point was now a growing sphere of altered space, expanding at an accelerating rate. "We've lost contact with the Rylan border colonies," reported communications. Officer Jin. "The breach entities have crossed into their territory." June's hastily assembled coalition fleet, comprised of ships from every world that had heeded the warnings, held position at the edge of the Orion sector. They had managed to evacuate 3 border worlds before the entities arrived, saving millions, but billions more remained in the path of the expansion. "Any response from the Galactic Council?" June asked, already knowing the answer. "They're in emergency session," Jin replied diplomatically. "You mean panic?" Hana said from her station where she coordinated with the science team. "They're in panic." A proximity alert sounded as a massive ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel nearby. The unmistakable design of the Council's ceremonial vessel, larger than a city, ornate to the point of impracticality, appeared on their screens. "They're hailing us," Jin announced with surprise. The main view screen activated to show the moderator himself, the silver-skinned being, who had dismissed Earth's warnings 6 months earlier. Behind him stood representatives from at least 15 species, their faces showing varying expressions of fear. "Captain Park," the moderator began, his usual formal tone replaced with unmistakable urgency. "The Council requires immediate consultation with Earth's anomaly research team." June exchanged a glance with Hana before responding. "With respect, moderator, consulting time ended when you granted NIGMA extraction rights. We're now in crisis response mode." "The Council acknowledges its error in judgment," the moderator said, the admission clearly painful. "We face an existential threat unlike any in recorded history. The entities emerging from the breach do not respond to communication attempts. They appear to be rewriting the fundamental laws of physics within their sphere of influence. We warned you this could happen," June couldn't help saying. "Yes, you did." The moderator's antennae drooped in the closest his species could come to showing shame. "The Council now turns to Earth for leadership in this crisis. You understood the danger when we did not. What do you propose?" Hana stepped forward. "I need to address the full Council immediately. Our research team has developed a theoretical solution, but implementation will require resources beyond anything Earth can provide." Hours later, in the grand chamber of the Council vessel, Hana stood before representatives of 22 spacefaring civilizations. The magnificent chamber, designed to impress and intimidate, now felt like a tomb as the gathered diplomats awaited Earth's proposal with desperate hope. Hana activated her presentation, showing complex calculations and quantum field equations. "The breach cannot be sealed by conventional means. What's coming through exists in more dimensions than our universe accommodates. However, we believe we can create a resonance cascade that will collapse the breach." "How?" demanded the fan representative, their collective voice buzzing with anxiety. "We have a solution," Hana explained, displaying a map of nearby star systems, "but we'll need to sacrifice several uninhabited systems to seal the breach. By triggering simultaneous nova events in these 7 stars, we can create a quantum barrier that will force the breach closed." The room erupted in horrified discussion. The moderator called for order. "You're proposing to destroy 7 star systems?" he asked. "7 uninhabited systems," June clarified, stepping up beside Hana. "To save trillions of lives, and possibly our entire reality." As the Council debated, Tactical Officer Yoon leaned toward June. "New readings from the breach perimeter," he whispered. "The expansion rate has increased again. At current progression, it will reach the nearest populated system in 48 hours. June looked at the frightened faces of the Council members. The NIGMA representatives were conspicuously absent, their entire civilization apparently gone in less than a day. "We don't have time for debate," he announced loudly. "Every minute we delay costs lives. Earth's fleet is already positioning for the resonance cascade operation. We need your ships, your resources, and your authorization. Now." The moderator looked around the chamber, seeing the fear in every face. Then, for the first time in the Council's long history, he bypassed the voting procedure entirely. "Authorization granted," he declared. All available vessels will follow Earth's command in this operation. As the representatives rushed to mobilize their forces, Hana caught Jun's arm. "I didn't tell them the whole truth," she whispered. "About what?" "The resonance cascade. Our models show a 70% chance it will work, but, June prompted when she hesitated, "but something is already coming through that's bigger than the others, something vast, and our sensors detect it's communicating somehow, with thousands of points across our galaxy." June felt a chill run through him. "As if it has agents already here?" Hana nodded grimly. "As if it's been planning this for a very, very long time." The Memorial Space Station, Remembrance, rotated slowly where the NIGMA homeworld had once orbited its sun. Unlike most stations which were built for efficiency, Remembrance was designed as a solemn monument, a perfect sphere of polished black material that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Across its surface, billions of tiny lights represented the lives lost when the dimensional breach consumed the NIGMA civilization. Inside the central observation dome, representatives from 30 species gathered for the third annual commemoration ceremony. The transparent ceiling revealed the quarantine buoys that surrounded this entire region of space, automated sentinels constantly scanning for dimensional instabilities, their warning lights blinking steadily in the darkness. Director June Park stood at the simple podium, his formal uniform bearing the new insignia of the Galactic Council's Anomaly Response Division. At 52, his once black hair now showed streaks of grey, and deep lines marked his face, physical reminders of the horrific final battle to seal the breach. 3 years ago today, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber, we succeeded in containing the most dangerous threat our galaxy has ever faced. Through sacrifice and cooperation, we closed the dimensional breach that consumed the NIGMA Empire and threatened all sentient life. The assembled diplomats, many of whom had fought alongside Earth's fleet during those desperate days, nodded solemnly. Among them stood Dr. Hana Kim, now the Council's chief science advisor, the neural implants at her temples glowing softly as they enhanced her already brilliant mind. "Today we remember billions of lives lost because warnings went unheeded," June continued. "We remember the 53 star systems that comprise the NIGMA Empire. We remember the 7 uninhabited systems sacrificed to create the resonance cascade that sealed the breach. And we remember the crew of the Horizon, whose loss should have served as warning enough." On cue, the lights dimmed, and the holographic display activated in the center of the chamber. It showed the final moments before the resonance cascade. 7 stars simultaneously forced into premature supernovae, the combined energy creating a quantum barrier that pushed back against the breach. The recording captured the moment when the entities that had poured through were forced back into their own dimension, their impossible geometries distorting as they retreated. "The cost was immeasurable," June said as the hologram faded. "But the alternative was the end of everything we know." Ambassador Han of Centauri Prime rose to speak next, her luminescent skin pulsing with solemn blue patterns. "The Centauri people will never forget how close we came to total annihilation. We have established education centers on all our worlds, so that future generations will understand the importance of respecting dimensional boundaries." One by one, representatives approached the podium, sharing their own commemorations and commitments. The Rylan Federation announced the completion of their early warning network. The Proxima Betans presented their new dimensional stability curriculum, now mandatory in all educational facilities. When the formal speeches concluded, the gathered representatives moved to the reception area, a solemn affair rather than a celebration. Drinks were served in glasses made from materials recovered from the edge of the quarantine zone, subtly distorted by their exposure to altered physics. June found himself standing beside Hana at the observation window, looking out at the star that had once given life to the NIGMA homeworld. 3 years, he said quietly. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday." Hana nodded. The evacuation ships from Proxima Gamma finally reached their destination last month. The last refugees of the breach are finally settled. 2 million displaced beings, June sighed, out of billions. They fell silent, remembering the desperate rush to evacuate border worlds as the entities poured through the breach. For every ship that escaped, hundreds had been lost, not destroyed, but transformed, their matter reconfigured according to alien physics that no one in this universe could comprehend. "The containment is holding," Hana said, changing the subject to something slightly less painful. "The quantum barrier shows no signs of degradation." "And the quarantine zone?" "Still expanding, but at a predictable rate now, just 5 kilometers per year. The altered physics continues to affect the surrounding space, but the breach itself remains sealed." Around them, the diplomatic reception continued. New alliances formed in the wake of the crisis had transformed galactic politics. Earth, once considered a newcomer barely worth attention, now held a permanent seat on the Council's executive committee. The few NIGMA survivors, mostly those who had been off-world during the catastrophe, had been granted refuge on various worlds, their technological knowledge valued despite their species' fatal mistake. As the event wound down, Jun prepared to return to his quarters when a young analyst approached him. Soo Jin, a brilliant physicist recruited from Earth's Korean Space Agency, held a data tablet with a concerned expression. "Director Park, I apologize for interrupting the commemoration," she said, her voice low. "But I've detected something you need to see immediately." June followed her to a private alcove where she displayed a series of energy readings. These were recorded by Deep Space Monitor 47 in the Vega sector, approximately 6 hours ago. June studied the patterns, a cold feeling spreading through his chest, the quantum fluctuations, the temporal distortions, the subtle thinning of dimensional barriers. He'd seen these exact signatures before. "How advanced is it?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. "Early stages," Sue replied, "similar to the Orion anomaly's initial readings before NIGMA began their extraction." June tapped his communication implant. "Security, locate Dr. Kim and ask her to join me immediately." When Hana arrived moments later, he showed her the readings without comment. Her eyes widened as she processed the implications. "It's happening again," she whispered. "But how?" "The quantum equations suggest this. Type of dimensional weakness should be extremely rare. Unless something is deliberately creating them," June said, voicing the fear that had haunted him for 3 years. "Remember what your sensors detected just before we sealed the breach? That massive entity that seemed to be communicating across our galaxy." Hana's hand went unconsciously to the neural implant at her temple, an enhancement she'd received after the close connection with the breach entities had left permanent changes in her brain. "I still dream about it sometimes. A consciousness vast beyond comprehension, patient beyond time." Sue looked between them nervously. "What do we do, Director?" June straightened his uniform, decision made. "Prepare a complete briefing for the Council. Include all data from Monitor 47, comparative analysis with the original Orion readings, and preliminary containment options." As Sue hurried away, Hana touched June's arm. "They'll listen this time, won't they?" "They'll listen," he confirmed. "The question is whether we learned enough from the first breach to prevent another." They returned to the observation dome, now empty except for the maintenance droids. Below them, the eternal flame at the center of the memorial station burned, with a steady blue light, illuminating the simple plaque that had become a galactic proverb. "Remember NIGMA. Heed the warnings." In the vast darkness beyond the station, quarantine buoys continued their endless patrol around the former NIGMA territories, a region of space where reality itself remained permanently altered, where the laws of physics worked differently, and where sometimes, on the edge of sensor range, impossible geometries still moved in patterns that suggested intelligence and purpose. June gazed out at the stars, knowing that somewhere in the Vega sector, another weakness in reality was forming. But this time the galaxy would not be caught unprepared. This time they would heed the warnings. The end